All right, peace, family, peace. We are now live. We are now live. Shout to everybody waiting. Got a new guest tonight, y'all. Got a new guest tonight, and we got an amazing show tonight. So, let me make sure. Can you? I see zero people in the room. Tell me if y'all hear me talking. I don't know why I see on my computer it says zero people. Let me know if y'all could hear me. Make sure y'all can hear me. Yeah, can y'all hear me? Let me know, family. Don't want to start talking and oh, you here? All right. Why Ziggy said they hear me. Okay, we here. All right, so I'm good to go. All right, so gonna get to some. Okay, everybody hears me. Great, great. All right, get comfortable, family. We got a great show tonight. We got some technology that we all could tap into in our daily lives that I'm sure a lot of y'all haven't heard about. Got a new guest. Got all the ingredients for a successful show tonight, y'all. So get comfortable, hit that like button, share the video, let everybody know we live. I'll be right back after this commercial break, family.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself, it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Peedy was with me. Order your copy of Kayla, Peedy, and the Forest on Amazon today.
Here, aka Goddess Guru, let me tell you something. When you think about magical people that seem to be manifesting the life of their dreams, those that have enough resources to do what they're called to do, and it just seems like the universe unfolds for them, it's no accident. Many of them are working with supernatural tools. I have created such a tool with my 2023 Angels Unleashed calendar. Go to VickiPlanet.com, buy them by the dozens. Let me see you there.
It's the numerational session with King Simon. Text your full name and date of birth to 347-496-1022. That's 347-496-1022. And get my books on Amazon now.
All right. Shout out to everybody advertising King Simon, Vicki Dillard. Make sure y'all get my mom's book, children's book, amazing book, and who else? And everybody else advertising. But without further ado, I want to welcome this man right here, this brother, this elder. Heard about him for such a long time. Lester Lovin, good to have you on the show, my brother.
Good evening and greetings to you and all the audience in the great diaspora we are.
Indeed. Listen, Lester Lovin, I've heard about you for so long. I haven't had.
I was nowhere near that liquor store.
Oh, there he go. There he go. He started. But yeah, I'm glad to finally get you on here, my brother. Very glad to get you on here. Always heard good things about your products and this pyramid technology that you that you offer to the masses. So we're definitely going to get into that. We're going to get into some high science tonight. Tell the people about yourself before we even start. Let them know exactly who you are and what exactly you do, my brother.
I am a middle of the road extremist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an independent researcher, which means I give myself permission to theorize what's going on in my world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the minister that performs the wedding between science and what people call metaphysics.
Okay. I like that sweater, by the way. That's a nice sweater, my brother.
Woof, woof. Thank you. I just work for a historical accuracy. Even though we associate the camels with the pyramids, the camels were only introduced into that region like 700 or 800 years ago. So there were no camels at the time of the pyramid building.
Indeed. So let's start out talking about the pyramids. I've heard accounts of aliens. I've heard of accounts of them being created with sound technology. People was able to make the bricks levitate with bricks. I've heard so many different stories about the pyramids. What can you tell me about the technology of what we call the pyramids, my brother?
Well, first of all, my introduction to this whole field When I heard the word pyramids, I naturally associated with Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, almost immediately, I was introduced to the concept that there were pyramids and pyramid builders around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So my general answer to you would be an investigation of what that particular shape does or generates or captures in relationship to all other shapes in terms of what they take in and give off. The pyramid is not unique in terms of its ability to draw in something. It's the way that it does and what that it captures. In terms of the pyramids in Egypt, there were so many contradictions when I first started studying that I had to have a complete rewrite in terms of what I understood. For example, I grew up in the time period when everybody just knew that pyramids were built for burying pharaohs. And as soon as I started studying, I found out that no one has ever found anyone buried in any pyramid. So that what I'm saying is just the facts that did not match up with the historical narrative kept me investigating. Now, I started studying pyramids in 1976. And in 1976, within 3 months of studying, I came across the fact that there are pyramids in 33 different countries around the world. This was shocking to me because in addition to the pyramids in Egypt and America, the only other place, you caught that? America. The only other place that I knew about pyramids was Mexico. On the day that I started studying, which was April the 20th, 1976, there were 70,000 known pyramids in Mexico. Since that time, that number has increased to 90,000. That means that there's a pyramid discovered in Mexico every single day that I've been studying.
Damn.
There are also 17 completely preserved pyramids underneath the sands in Egypt. They've got the outside covering on them. There's not a dent or mark. No one has blown up anything on them. And so, of course, when my students and the people I talk with say, well, of course, we're going to go down and dig those things up. And I'm like, of course not. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, well, first of all, if we did go down there and digging this stuff up, it would no longer be in debate as to the accuracy and the engineering and the architecture that the Egyptians were able to pull off. Okay? We've always heard that the outside covering had bricks that you couldn't put a piece of paper in. But when you actually see that replicated over millions of times, you understand that these people and whoever else built pyramids around the world had a different perspective on how energy works. In addition, there's a law that the Egyptian government made about 4 or 5 years ago that anything that's uncovered, anything you dig down, no matter how long it takes you, no matter whatever you discover, once you document it and do whatever, you have to cover it back up. So we're not going to find out too much about that on this level of investigation. And for all these people who are talking about meditation and 14 dimensions and a multiverse, well, that's our job to go down there and see what's going on and replicate that type of technology. As far as theories are concerned, I don't have to deal with theories because when I met Diana Farr, all those years ago, and people were asking me, what's your theory about how they built the pyramid? I looked them right in the eye and said, I will not have a theory. I will demonstrate what I think they did. So I'm saying two things here. First of all, it's more than likely that it's some sort of levitation combined with sound technology. However, that's still not saying that I know what sounds, what frequencies. Is it dependent on above the equator or below the equator? The size of the rock, So, we've got a long way to go. The pyramid has taught humanity, and, people have been studying this thing for over 4,500 years. And our collective consciousness has not even made a dent into how this thing was built or what it was for.
So what do you think what was it for? Being that it's all over the world, seems like every culture knew the importance of it. What was the purpose of building these pyramids?
Well, see, once again, like multidimensional beings that we are, the pyramids have more than one function.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the ones that are scientifically proven by Western science and technology is the fact that depending on where the pyramids are located above the equator,
Mm-hmm.
the distance of the base and the height will give us an indication as to what latitude and longitude that civilization exists in. So pyramids, first and foremost, the first thing that they do is a universal measure of latitude and longitude, and that means that these people had to have understood um, the the dimensions and the surface of the earth, and that it was flat. Oh no, I'm sorry. That whatever it was, that they understood what that shape is.
Mm-hmm. So
Second of all,
mhm.
no, I ain't done yet. Second of all, the 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 pyramid um, indicates, because most pyramids are step pyramids, and they have 7 different levels. So that tells us that the pyramid is a 3-dimensional map. If you were to take a map, you know, the Rand McNally map that we used to get when we were driving, you take a global map, you take the map, and you can grab it anywhere and you pull it up, it will be 3-dimensional. So therefore, if I wanted to know how to travel from one part of the earth to another part of the earth, I could just pull out a small pyramid or look at a pyramid and know how to travel, how far it would be to go from where I am to another point. Third, in building pyramids, of course, they they form shapes that block out a lot of light. And so pyramids around the world were used as giant telescopes
Mm.
and stargazing, because the time signature, that is to say, they understood there's time as we think of it now as 24 hours, but
Mm.
there's also um, celestial time, or you know, the time it takes for the Earth to turn from one star back to that same star, and that's not 24 hours. And then, of course, there's a third type of time. But I'm always fine to put it up, poking the finger in the eye by reminding people the Earth used to spin faster than it does now, and therefore time is slower in relation to that.
Mm. Indeed.
We
Oh,
don't
very.
exist in the same time. Space time is dependent upon the medium that it's traveling through.
Mm.
And what I
It's
mean by that is, well, no, I
yeah.
want to explain. What I mean by that is we've been traveling through a rather less dense version of space time, and that's a big fancy way of saying that we know that our galaxy has many arms or spirals, and we've been in between the arms of those spires. But our entire solar system is about to go into one of the arms, and therefore time will change. Space time will change because it's denser than what we were traveling through before.
So when you say change in terms of speeding up, that you mean that, or
Yeah.
yeah, I figured that. I figured, man. Sometimes I don't even know the day of the week, brother. I'll be like, what day it is? I don't even know what day of the week it is sometimes, brother. I'm like completely off. Bro, man, I'm like completely off with time. So I feel what you're saying with that. Um, so let's get to this technology that I've been hearing about for years, that you offer, that you created, that you make. I've heard of Nikola Tesla. Um, I don't now the world is going to hear about Lester Lovin. I also heard of Lester Lovin. So tell me about and I could talk to you about Nikola Tesla later on and ask you what your thoughts on his free energy and everything he contributed. But
Thought.
what exactly? Yeah. But yeah, so what's going on with your technology, this pyramid technology you got, my brother?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but well, okay, okay.
Mm.
I just heard Diana inside my head. Okay, First and foremost, I always go to the dictionary.
Yeah.
So that I can learn what the various meaning of the word is and also where it came from. And right now we are fond of addressing our world in terms of technologies. We're in a global climate crisis. Well, what's the technology that will help us? Our food has all kinds of toxins and additives, and what's the technology? Okay, so where does the word technology come from?
I don't know, brother. I don't know.
Okay, the word technology, if we were to look into a modern dictionary, would tell us it was from Greece. But the word technology comes from the word tekken, which is straight out of downtown ancient Kemet.
Right, right.
And the word tekken, which is the word for what the Greeks called the obelisk, the word tekken means to bring back into balance. So therefore, before we even discuss technology, we have to discuss the fact that something is out of balance. And in this particular case, it has to do with our living environments. Now, my journey, I don't like anecdote stories, but my journey started because I won a scholarship to go to a computer school where you learn how to write the basic language programs of the computers. And within 2 days of sitting there, I knew absolutely that I could not do this for a living.
Oh man.
That there was an energy. I didn't even know it was coming from the computer, but I was like, I can't focus, I can't concentrate, but it wasn't linear like that. Okay. I could take down the notes. I could go home. Once I went home, I was fine. What I understood that my antenna was not off. It was blocked. The thing that I'd used intuitively all my life, this thing kind of neutralized it. And I was like, oh no. And so after a couple of weeks, I just said, I'm out. Went around the country talking to people about various things. And I just happened to talk to a professor, and I mentioned my teacher said that some people find there's an energy that comes from this thing. And he immediately said, oh, that's positive ions. Once I had a term, I could then study and investigate, and I started studying the effect that positive ions have on the body and the effect that negative ions have on the body. Okay. They have complementary, but what we would call opposite effects. If we have too many positive ions in our environment, it slows down our digestion. It makes our decision making, our linear thinking more difficult. It riles up our emotion and makes us more prone for arguments and fighting. It collects smoke, dust, and pollen and pollution. It collects it. And when we live in the environments we do, which is to say, not just indoors, but indoors with rooms that have these 390-degree corners, the ideal ratio is 70% negative ions to 30% positive
30%.
ions.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we walk into the building, the building itself has 30% negative ions and 70% positive. 30% negative and 70% positive. Okay, so I went to investigate what was it about? What was it about these environments? And the 5 things in our environments that generate the positive ions the most. Number 1, television set.
Mm.
The television set not only generates positive ions, but the field that it sends out goes 50 feet. And positive ions positive ions travel through physical matter. That means that if my neighbor has a TV and it's aimed in my direction, I'm still getting some of that radiation. Number 2, computer.
Mm.
Number 3, refrigerator. Number 4, fluorescent lights. And number 5, the 90-degree corners. And of course, in the case of the first floor, placing a plain quartz crystal on the extension cord of that device and wrapping it at least 7 times with copper wire will neutralize 90% of the radiation. In other words, it doesn't get rid of
90%?
it. I'm sorry, say that again?
No, I said 90%. Wow.
95%. It's 90.
Wow.
But I want to make a differentiation. Okay.
Mm.
This is not a wiping out of anything.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're used to war. At least I'm used to war. I'm from the generation where we'd order the little green army men or the cowboys and Indians. It's always some villain. Okay. When we take the quartz crystal and we wrap it with copper wire. Now, in this particular case, we're putting the extension cord on the crystal and wrapping the copper around both of them. And we need to do a minimum of 7 wrappings. Okay. What happens is the radiation comes out from the set. And we can demonstrate this to ourselves simply by putting, I put my arm out in front of the TV set like 6 inches or 8 inches, and my arm is extended across the screen. And then I turn on the set. And even if I can't feel the radiation going out, the hairs on the back of my arm will point in that direction. They will stand up and actually go in that direction. And then I put the quartz crystal on the extension cord. And then I put my arm out and I turn it back on. And the hairs on my arm will go out because the radiation goes out. But then it comes back and it comes within 4 inches of the set. So we haven't defeated the field, but it's no longer radiating us.
Mm.
And these things are true of the excuse me, the TV, the computer, and if you can get to the line, the fluorescent light. The refrigerator has a few more issues, so it takes more than just put the quartz crystal on there. So for example, I'm not trying to be vague. We would need to put a quartz crystal on the extension cord of the refrigerator because the refrigerator itself vibrates at 60 hertz per second. Ultimately, we need to get some kind of piece of solid wood or solid marble or stone that our TV resides on top of. Otherwise, and once again, this is very easy to measure. None of this stuff is metaphysical or out there. Okay, the human body on average vibrates at 7.83 hertz or 7.83 times a second. Now, all different organs vibrate at way different frequencies, but when you add it all together and mash it down, it's 7.83, just like the Earth. Mm-hmm. As soon as we get within 1 foot of our refrigerator, our bodies vibrate at 60 hertz.
Mm.
Because guess what? Guess what? The first physics law that's in the ancient Kemetic text is higher vibration always has dominion over lower vibration.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hear you chuckling, Diana. Okay, so
Who's Diana?
uh, that's the goddess of the moon.
Okay, okay. I heard you say Diana twice. I'm like, who's Diana? Okay. All right, Diana.
um, okay, so of course, over the years, over the years, I've been looking for something that would help with these principles.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, since the computer lets off, or at least the computers of my day, let off so many positive ions, I knew I was extra sensitive to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I ran into the fact that there are negative ion generators. And there are inexpensive ones, there are moderately priced ones, there are ones that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And depending on what kind of environment you live in or work in, you could use one or all of them. The
Oh, so
point,
those things work. They work. The negative ion, they work.
well, see, once again, I'm not trying to be um, the science teacher here, because I'm not the science teacher, but um, it's about following through on the data. Okay, now you know, back in the day when you bought something there'd be that piece of paper that or the booklet, right? It always had data. We didn't care. We didn't, we skipped over the data. But in the case of the negative ion generators, most of them will say that they cover an area of 250 square, uh, 250 square feet, um, which is smaller than most rooms that people are in. In other words, they don't cover the whole room. And if I wanted to have the proper ionization in my home, I would have to have one of those machines in each of my rooms in my house. Now, this is where my stuff comes in. Even if I put the crystals on all these devices and other devices, and there's other things we need to do, but even if we did all of that, these 90-degree corners that we're talking about, the thing that's at the top of our rooms,
The corner.
the corner where where the walls and the ceiling come together,
Yeah.
okay, they are collecting positive ions,
Uh-huh.
and therefore those machines can't possibly do a 100% job.
Mm.
Now, the science of the universe says that everything has a positive and negative potential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if something has a positive actualization, it has a negative potential. They go together. So in the case of these corners, what we have to do is change the shape of the corner. And let's see here. Hold on. My good friend gave me a marker. So I was supposed to use it. Okay. So let's see. We're just gonna draw our typical corner. Everybody see this? Can anybody see
Yeah,
this?
yeah. They see it.
Okay. So, first of all, let me break this down in terms of shape, vibration, and frequency, and how it relates to what we call the platonic solids or sacred geometry. Hold on just a second. When we describe this reality, and when I say we, I mean we in the Western world, we like to do a lot of shorthand when we talk about science. When we talk about anything, you know, IBM, you know, ABC, CBS. Okay, so we said these are not. This is a 90-degree corner. This is actually 3 90-degree corners. Okay, and they don't have any completion. And when I looked into the books on astrology, and they talked about a situation where you have an angle or a relationship that deals with 270. And forgive me, but I cannot think of what that is called. It's not an opposition, it's not a square, but when you have 270, the way it was described to me in physics is a 270-degree angle is not harmonious because the energies are going in different directions. Okay, so how do we resolve this conundrum? Okay, so here's our 3 90-degree corners. And as soon as we put a triangle there, not only have we changed the shape, but we've now completed that. So what this looks like is it is now a tetrahedron. Once we put that triangle on, we now have 4 sides, not 3.
Mm.
And since each triangle is 180 degrees, right? We got 180, 180, 180, and 180. So that's 720. So we went from 270 to 720. Do you follow what I'm saying, bro?
Right, definitely.
Okay, now, stupid me, but I just remember this echo saying higher frequency has dominion over lower frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So we have raised the frequency of this corner by more than 200% just by putting that triangle in there.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the beauty of any triangle is that everywhere there is a tip, or what we call in science a vertices, every time these things meet, okay, every time there's a tip, negative ions hang out on that tip.
Mm.
And so all they're doing is waiting until the positives come by. Now, the positive ions can't congregate in there anymore because it's the wrong shape. But they don't get a chance to hang out too long because the negative ions will join with them And in this case, we're talking about, when I say positive ion, that's hydrogen and hydrogen. When I say negative ion, that's oxygen and hydrogen. So when those hydrogen and oxygen and hydrogen come together, they form a water molecule. And anytime water is moving, it's generating negative ions. So just by changing this shape, we're not reinventing anything. We're just changing these molecules' behavior. And so now, what would have been an area of the stuff we don't want is now converting them back into the stuff that we do want.
And because you put the pyramid there, does that also mean that corner will less likely collect dust like it would if it didn't have the pyramid there?
It's not, no, it's not less likely. The actual behavior of negative ions is to break up the smoke, dust, and pollen.
Okay.
Now, one of the ways that we make this system be at optimal performance, we know that it's going to break up more smoke, dust, and pollen.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, we need to sweep that floor, do our dusting every day or as much as possible, because it's knocking the stuff out of the air so that we are not going to have to breathe it.
Right.
Now that leads us to part 2 of this system, because this is only part 1. Okay. Part 2 is the fact that since grade 1, they always talk to me about static electricity.
Yes.
And static electricity is this condition somehow that exists. And so when we walk across the rug or the floor and we touch that doorknob, we see that spark and it stings a little bit. And, that's an ongoing condition, static electricity. Okay. And this is where last week or 2 weeks ago when I was on Hank's show, I gave homage to Brother Noor and Brother Samaj. Brother Noor Amen is the author of the book, The Ark. The history of electromagnetism in our world. And I've met thousands of people who have read this book. But it's time for us to now translate what the brother said into useful, functional things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's one thing to talk about levitation, okay, and sound, and that's one thing. But we also have to prepare, because the moment someone comes up with levitation, the shipping, trucking, all the other industries are done. So we have to try out the whole new thing, not just the invention itself, but how to, change the system so that it will maintain itself. The point I'm making here is, when we go to school, they tell us that some electrons just hang out. The ancient Egyptians, and I say that term because they are the Kemites. Okay. For the Western people, they call them the ancient Egyptians versus the modern Egyptians. Well, they understood the principle of electrostatic discharge. Now that's just a big fancy word for how your ankh works.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we understand that that there are polarities, there's positive and negative, and they're in a state of static. In other words, they need something to come along to break that equality of energy. Just like the uh, static electricity on our rug. And reading both in Brother Noor's book and also in the physics book, they say it is almost impossible while looking at the world as electromagnetism that we can overcome these electrostatic moments. It's almost impossible.
Mm.
Except if we create a circuit.
Mm.
And that's where Dr. Blair comes in. Okay, because I gotta make a new blackboard here.
Take your time, brother. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Make sure you hit that like button. This is Lester Lovin for all of y'all just tuning in. Wonderful demonstration tonight about changing the energy in our home.
Okay. This is straight out of downtown, Luxor, which is not even the name.
Mm-hmm.
This is straight out of ancient Kemet. Okay, it actually back to my hometown of Atlantis and Mu. Okay, this is some early fun. We want to make a battery, yo. So, and in order for us to make this battery, we need to make a circuit. Now, the most basic circuit in all of the universe is either a circle or a sphere. The second easiest circuit that we can make is a triangle. So, of course, on our triangle that goes at the bottom, where we got the 3 90-degree corners, it's going to have some sort of metal. Okay? And just like our Chemite brothers told us, we need to have something that goes on top of that metal. Okay? And when they describe things, because we get this word electricity from the Greeks, electron, which is the what I'm trying to say is we describe everything in our world in terms of electricity. Mm-hmm. The word electricity comes from the word electron, which is the Greek for that thing that goes around the nucleus. The electron is negatively charged. So the Egyptians did not describe things from an electromagnetic perception. So let's go back to what I'm saying. We start out with a metal. Then we put some non-metallic metal on top of that metal. And that's called the dielectric. We would call it an insulator, but by calling it an insulator, that's referring to an electromagnetic way of looking at it. Okay, and then finally, we put on top of that, we put a different metal. And now we have our battery that's going to pull those static things off of that rug and off of our environment. And as soon as that starts to move, then that goes to that bottom corner and it starts to be pulled up to that top corner. And what we're doing is exactly mimicking how it works on Earth. This, I did not invent this. Okay. If I had invented this, I'd be sipping my ties right now, and y'all Negroes would not be hearing from me. So I'm just saying that this is a universal way of looking at our environment, both from, see, because the bottom, this is where we live. Up there, that's where the ionosphere and, you know, where the cosmic rays are coming into our atmosphere. So we're mimicking what's actually going on from here into what is called the heavens. And I'm sorry to tell you, but that's only the first half of the movie because we haven't even seen the star yet. So, questions?
Wow. Before we continue, brother, so much talk about negative ions. For those who may be a little confused or may not have knowledge in negative ions, could you tell us why are negative ions so important?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that in at least 3 different ways. Outside of these buildings and these metro area type things that we build, everything in nature up until the late 20th century, if it had not been disturbed by, you know, technologies and pollution, it's not even technology, by pollution, it would have a 70-30 negative to positive ion count.
Right.
Okay. Now, we know I'm just looking to see how to answer this. This is how I want to answer it. Okay. Back in the day, when I was first introduced to the community, and I'm using terms like negative ions and positive ions, of course people were confused because we've all been taught that negative means negative to us and positive means positive to us. And what I had to explain to people is that these were states of when molecules separate, when water is together, you know, H2O as we call it. And there is no there, you can't find H2O on this planet. But when there's H2O, it has no charge whatsoever. But as soon as those two things separate out, it will separate out into, as I said, hydrogen. And so there's, you know, water's H2O. So the H will separate out on one side and the OH will separate out on the other side. As they separate out, the H is lacking in an electron. And therefore, and this is not scientifically accurate, but there's more positive energy than the negative. You've lost an electron. So there's one positive and no negative. So that's called a positive ion. On the other hand, the OH has actually gained an electron. So it might have you know 2 protons, but it's got 3 electrons. So it has one more electron or negative charge than the positive, and therefore its overall result is described as negative. A more accurate way of describing this is in terms of describing it as things in nature that are electron donors and electron acceptors. So if I were to say to you, if you go over to that pine tree, it's going to donate electrons to you, then you know it's giving me something. And, and walking on the grass without your shoes on, those are electron donors. Hugging a tree is an electron donor.
Okay.
Being by a waterfall is an electron donor.
Mm-hmm.
Walking by the ocean is an electron donor. It's giving electrons to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I'm by electron acceptors, like walking in the desert where there's no, oases,
Mm-hmm.
those are electron acceptors. They're pulling electrons from us.
Mm-hmm.
Being in our 90-degree environments, those are electron acceptors.
Mm-hmm.
Having sheetrock in your wall is an electron acceptor.
Mm.
You follow what I'm saying? It's pulling energy from us.
From us, yeah.
Okay, so that's the way I would explain. Not I explain, but that's the way I would say it so people get a clear idea that when we say negative ions, we're saying something's donating to us. When we say positive ions, something's taking stuff from us.
Before you continue, real quick, any light you recommend? I know you talked about the fluorescent light. Anything you recommend for us to replace the fluorescent light with?
Outdoors.
Yeah.
Oh no, I know that's not what you meant. Look, I say to people, start with where you're at, or deal with whatever you can afford to deal with. If you got your fluorescent lights, then put those crystals on that cord of the fluorescent lights until you can replace them. There's all kinds of technologies that are out here right now, including LED lighting.
So that's better. LED lighting is better than fluorescent.
Yes.
Okay.
And see, once again, I don't like blanket endorsements.
Right.
But yes, absolutely. Or let me be more scientific than that. The fluorescent light, or the positive ions that are coming out of the fluorescent signature, I'll give him a degree, is where they're plugged in. You know where the two prongs are on each end?
Yeah.
That's where the significant positive ion radiation is.
Mm-hmm.
So I only mention that because if you're on the subway, platform, you got fluorescent lights from one end of the platform to the other. Those stand where those two different bulbs, those two different fixtures are next to each other. That's where the heaviest concentration of positive ions is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what I'm also saying to you is, I don't have enough brain power, time, and materials to have figured all this out myself. But when people bring different aspects to me, because people work in different industries, and therefore that affects different parts of the body, or in some cases, when people give me ancient remedies, things before we had these modern things, and I'm able to apply them, then I can feed that back to everyone. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying, it's an ongoing investigation is how we cure ourselves from all of these maladies. Mm-hmm. But by no means, and people that know me know that the spiritual pit bull in me always growls when people use the word lifestyle. Because I'm like, this is not bringing on life. But we have to know that. We trust that these things are safe. At the same time, I don't give a fuck. We're going to turn it around.
Oh, definitely, brother. Plug my computer in before it dies. Yeah, I want you to I know you said you had some more you want to talk about. So I definitely wanted you to continue, and then I'll let the people ask some questions because I know they're loving this show, and they got some questions they want to ask you. But I definitely want you to continue. This is very interesting, Lester Levin. Very interesting.
Well, look, okay. All I can tell you is how this impacted me.
Yeah.
And how this impacted me is that as soon as I started investigating all of this stuff, I realized that I had no inkling as to the world I lived in, the materials that it was made of, what effect it had on me, and that I had even the possibility of changing that up. So through experimentation, um, mass amounts of reading and tinkering, but more important, looking back to what the ancients said and left us. The idea of what I said about discharge is that's the science of the ankh and the staff and the rod and all the other things they had. They just did it at a much higher level.
Right.
But the sooner we see it in our homes, the sooner. Look, what I love about this is, I'm about to tell you how to enhance the triangles and all that stuff. But no one's going to enhance something unless they see it working.
Can you show us one? You got one you can show us? Let me see.
Oh, I'm bath on the first date. I got to run to the bathroom, but I will show you everything as soon as I get back.
All right, take your time, Elder.
Okay.
Take your time. Take your time, Elder. Let the Elder use the restroom real quick, family. I mean, this was I'm gonna have to get some of those from the Elder, man. Negative ions, just being in nature. If I'm in the park or after it rains outside, you could feel the difference immediately. You could have a headache. You'll go outside after it rains, that shit is disappearing. Or if you go to the park, you go by the water, whatever problems you got, that shit is disappearing. So it's definitely it's powerful. Yeah, I'm not going to ask a lot of questions because tonight at all, because I want to get some questions from y'all. I know this is very interesting and this is life changing. So I'm gonna allow y'all to ask the Elder some questions after he finishes giving his talk. But yeah, I've heard of the Elder for years, so I'm just excited to finally have this Elder on the show. Yeah, and I know he sells. I don't know if he has a website. I'm definitely gonna ask the Elder if he has a website. But yeah, I know he's a one-man crew, so be easy on him. What I'm saying? I know y'all gonna bombard him, it may take a little time to come or something. It seemed like he's a one-man crew, but I know the Elder, he's definitely knows how to make them. I'm definitely gonna get me some from the Elder. What's going on with y'all in the chat? Yeah, it's hard to be unhappy near natural water. Yeah, it is. It is. It definitely is. It definitely is. Oh, somebody said get his Cash App. I don't think he has Cash App. I'll ask him though, but I don't think the Elder, he's not really into the technology like that. I'm definitely gonna ask him. Let me see what else you're talking about. Okay.
A likely story.
All right. Yeah, I'm just reading. I'm just in the comment section. Take your time, Elder. I'm just in the comment section seeing what the people. Brother Rich, can you bring on KRS One? Maybe one day that would be dope. That would be cool.
Of course.
That'd be cool.
What do you mean?
Hey,
What do you mean one day? Come on now.
no, I'm reading the question.
No.
Oh no,
I'm
I
just
said one day. You right. I did say one day. You right. I did. You right.
Look. I'm the old guy on the porch. Okay, I ain't got time for one day. That brother has been throwing down some serious spice. You know.
Hey.
Anyway, bro.
Hey, Elder, before you continue, my brother, the people want to know how can they donate to you. They love the information. Do you have Cash App? Do you know what Cash App is? You don't know what Cash App? Yeah, I didn't think you had Cash App. You don't have a way to do you have a website for the pyramids? Do you have a website?
You're 0 for 2, bro. Okay.
I'm 0 for 2. Damn. Well, how do you sell? Do you sell the pyramids that you make? Do you sell them? I was under the impression that you sold them.
I do. I have PayPal.
You got PayPal.
Yes. Look. Listen to me. Education. You know, planting the seed in the ground does not require any kind of it's its own compensation. Anyway, because see, I don't know what y'all talking about, so next.
So are you done? You want me to get to some Q&A from the people, or is there anything else you want to talk about, or you want me to get to...
I do, because we're gonna get to we're gonna get to round one, which is how this whole thing operates. So yes.
Okay.
Right, let's do the Q&A.
Okay, well, let's do the Q&A. Do you... Oh, they want to know, do you want... They're asking, do you want to leave your PayPal? Do you want to leave it? You want to give it to the people? Or
I will leave it at the end.
Okay. All right, let's get to some more. Give me some questions, family, because I know you had questions earlier. Give me some questions. I gotta scroll up that I can ask the elder. We're gonna do a Q&A real quick. Then the elder is gonna wrap it up. Somebody said, Brother Rich, can you ask Brother Lester where's the pyramid he used to wear on his head?
It's at home.
So you used to wear one on your head, huh? I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, bro. What's wrong? Okay. See, I left the pyramid out of the conversation because the tonight's focus was on ionization. But the person, I don't know who that person is, but they most certainly, Ace Boone Coon, absolutely right. So let me go. Let me just grab one of Hank's. Hold on.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he's at a Hank spot right now. Shout out to Hank. Lester Lovin's at Hank's spot in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh no, my brother. See, there's multiple, there's different versions of pyramids that I have made and worn, but I'll just give you the ABCs of pyramid wearing, which is, of course, most people, because they're orientated to what they've read in the books, and rightfully or wrongfully, I'm not judging it, but they always talk about the sides of the pyramid being aligned with, north, absolute dead north to the North Pole. And so most people wear their pyramids like this. And the pyramids I have are a little bit smaller than that. So I advise them to wear it like this. But in terms of what the brother's talking about, regardless of what kind of pyramid, I was always rolling like this, yo.
Oh man, you crazy, man. Oh man. Okay. Somebody wants to know, what if I change the sheetrock into activated charcoal?
You mean the sheetrock in the walls?
Yeah, you made a comment about the sheetrock in the wall earlier.
Right. Uh that would be a lot healthier, sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Let me get to the next question. Are there any other crystals that we could use around the house to cleanse from toxins?
Every crystal. I mean, I know they're asking for specific things, but not even as an anal scientist, I would still need to know a category of cleansing. Are you talking about clinical cleansing? Are you talking about radioactive cleansing, basic cleansing? Um, but see, once again, what we're gonna get to, what I'm saying about biomimicry. Okay, wait, what is that? Bio means life, and mimicking means imitating what life has already done. So we're looking at nature, the neter, the neteru, and we're saying, in her wisdom, these wisdoms, which are not even this, the wisdoms were used to construct this.
Mm.
And so by observing this, and here's the key, yo. This is what y'all been wanting me to say forever. They keep destroying this so that we can't get our education of this, of the wisdom. If you keep people from their cosmic examples, they will have to depend on limited plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever, I don't mean that as physical plastic, but just something that you're not making, something that you can't possibly align with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's and that what I'm saying is what has been demonstrated is by me studying nature, and not like in National Geographic where I go out into the wild, and there's the wild, the rare hippopotamus. I did all that too. Okay, because everybody knows, people always, he got struck by lightning. I got struck by a tornado. Okay, that's big pimping. Sorry.
Oh, grab that paper towel because I'm sliding this thing.
Mm.
Okay, what I'm saying is in the smallest way, not in a dramatic way. In everyday life, in the way the salt crystals are formed, it's all there to teach us stuff. And I was just blessed enough to come along at the right time and the right combination that it said you can turn your environment around. And once you get the environment system working, it's a system. It's not like replacing sheetrock with the other thing. That works, but you still got all these other maladies. We have to make it a living system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the blessing. That's the blessing. That I don't want to give people individual things to do. That's the Western way. This is recreating a living system within one's home. And by doing that, my friend told me to say this, you're now resonating with all those other living systems, both local and all the way funkin' out there.
Mm. Indeed. Let me get to this next question, my brother. They want to know, how can we make the pyramids? They want to know, how can they make them for the corners in the house?
I'm gonna get to all that. I get to get to part B first.
Well, let's get to part B, my brother. Yeah. Let's get
Okay.
to part B. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Now let's see. Where's the star of the show? Oh. you know, I read a whole bunch of books, and they talked about the metaphysical properties of not just you know gemstones or semi-precious metals. Or, I mean, semi precious stone, but precious stone, and all this stuff. And it was written from a standpoint that it was there was something exotic about it, like it came from a certain place, which it did, and it didn't exist somewhere else, or the shape of it, or whatever. And yet the bottom line was, no matter what I kept studying, and I read everything. I read all the physics, the crystallography stuff, where take a tiny piece of the gemstone, and you send the light through it, and it makes the pattern, so you can distinguish what you can take any piece of rock and you can tell what it is. I studied that whole side. I studied the Ayurvedic thing of grinding out gemstones into your food. Where did the different minerals separate on the earth? Because that's another thing I found out, that depending on how fast or slow the earth is spinning, and I don't mean in different sections of space. I mean the earth spins at different rates according to where you are, according to the equator. The equator spins faster than the North Pole does. And so certain gemstones or metals will separate out into those areas. I studied all that. And yet, what I'm trying to say here very simply is they kept talking about 93% of the Earth's surface is either quartz or calcite. And I should have gotten a hint right then just from that piece of data, that anywhere I could go on Earth, I'm going to find quartz and calcite right on the surface. Don't have to dig for it. It's not rare. There must be something about the stuff that it's everywhere. Okay. The point is, I collected crystals and particularly quartz for 12 years. 12 years in which I had been religiously studying negative and positive ionization and trying to figure out the best negative ion machine that I can have. And after I had supposedly studied and suffered enough, for those of you who into this spiritual pursuit of oneself, you understand. After I had done enough, the universe came to me and it said, and I'm saying this to you now, what's the simplest way for me, Lester, to generate negative ions? I get a container and I fill it with water. Normally, when I demonstrate this, I use a 16-ounce glass, but just for visual effects, I'm just using a slightly bigger one. Okay. Take the container. I take a piece of quartz. It doesn't really matter how big it is. The water, it's not important. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be clear. This is not clear. I just drop this into the water. And then I put this water onto a table or whatever. and I wait. My point is, I said, what's the simplest way for me, little Lester, to generate negative ions? Okay. Now, what's happening inside? Okay, where's my okay? Where's my cardboard blackboard? Okay. Here we have our basic quartz crystal. This is called the base, and this is called the termination. The base, or where the quartz grew off of the rock, okay, that always has a negative charge. Where the quartz terminates or grows to a point, that has a positive charge. Okay. When the water molecule separates into its ions, the hydrogen has a positive charge. The OH, the hydroxyl, has a negative charge. Opposites do not attract. Opposite charges of like materials attract. So therefore, the hydrogen having a positive charge will move toward the base of the crystal. The hydroxyl, or the negative ion, having a negative charge, will move toward its opposite charge, which is at the point. And they're moving moves the water. This process of the H2O molecule separating out into these two parts and going back together is 1 billion times a second. So the only reason our water is not healthy is because we have chemicals and toxins, forever plastics. But the most toxic of all is our thoughts. And therefore, our water cannot purify itself. If it was exchanging back from these parts to H2O to these parts 1 billion times a second, the water would be fine. So when we place the quartz crystal into the water, it speeds up the rate that it goes back and forth, and therefore the water can purify itself. But because nature doesn't do anything just for itself, if I leave the quartz crystal into that water over time, within one 24-hour period, the negative ions that are generated inside of that container now go 1 foot out from that container. So I'm going to go back. So I just put that quartz crystal in here. If we came out here tomorrow this time, we could measure that negative ions are coming out of here for 1 foot all the way around. And if we did it if we waited for 2 days, it would be
20 feet?
no. 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. You following?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So the very first point I'm making is we have a negative ion generator. The combination of quartz, a glass container, and water will generate negative ions. The problem, because that's how people look at it, is that it doesn't generate a field big enough to cover my whole room, just like the machine. And therefore, the second stage of this is where's this thing, you old wizard? Oh no, that's not it. Uh-oh, you better come up with it now. No.
Yeah,
What? Oh, here we go, Santa Claus.
you got it.
No. Uh, remember my example is that crystal is just in there on its own.
Yeah.
Once we put a coiling of the copper around the crystal, coiling meaning not just randomly next to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you do a minimum of 7, you're going to increase the rate at which the water dissociates and comes back together. And therefore, the ion production that you get will go farther out from that container.
And where you supposed to put that? The copper?
You
Just
okay? Okay, I'm going to start over. I put the quartz crystal into the water, and I let that reside for 3 days.
yeah.
That pushed the negative ions 3 feet.
Yeah.
If I put the same crystal and
Okay.
put
With that.
copper wire on it, that's going to push it out even farther faster.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, once again, I'm just addressing the basics of how we energize and de-energize our homes. These are the principles. Anybody can build upon a principle and make a bigger, more dynamic. I'm just telling you, these are the fundamentals of how it works. Now, since you brought that up, I'm going to go to the next part. Depending on the gauge of copper wire one uses, in other words, the thickness of the copper wire. Okay. So let's go back to that crystal that Hank donated for us to see. See this? Can you see this?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, this is not a static science that I can. Yeah, I'm going to give you an exact answer. If you had this, if I could replicate this crystal, the exact same size and shape, and I gave it to 5 different people, and they wrapped it with 5 different gauges of copper wire, the thicker the copper wire, the less amount of turns I'm going to be able to put on that crystal.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the the more wrappings I can get on the crystal, the more energetic that crystal will be in terms of making our negative ions.
Okay.
I also want to say, from a mechanical standpoint, that we use certain gauges because, in this case, this gauge, you can get almost 3 times as many windings as you can from the thicker gauge.
Mm-hmm.
But this gauge is that much easier to pop when you're halfway through turning it.
I got you, brother.
Okay. All right. I didn't hear that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm letting people know this is not an anal, this is the rule type science.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to turn that tiny, that thin stuff and not pop it, you could take a tiny crystal and just wind it that many more times, and you'll get the same thing as a big ass crystal like this.
Right.
It's all, look, I don't give a fuck about scientific measurement, even though what I do, I have to measure it to show other people. I go by people moving, consciousness moving. I'm not trying to be a teacher. I'm just saying, when people, they may not know how many or what, is this the right copper or whatever. They're doing it. They're trying.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I go by. Okay, now just a few more things. One principle is energetically 7 windings, and harmonically or multiples of 7, and scientifically has an amplification that's greater than the in-between for some reason. And I've studied this for 35 years, and I still can't figure out why it happens. I can see it happening.
Uh-huh.
But people, when people see my crystals, like the one I just showed you, what I wound, or these other 2, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you must have those at 7 and 14." I don't measure it. I don't measure it at all. I just put as many windings as I can on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm saying that to free people from these obligations that they have to do the scientific, the most powerful. Please, I'm just looking. I can turn it 7 times on a thing. There was one more aspect. Hold on, there's one more aspect.
Take your time.
Oh yeah. Now, this is the really huge one. When it comes to Western conventional science, says positive ions will pass through physical matter, and negative ions will not pass through physical matter. That's one of the reasons why these machines that they have, just like your TV had no problem going through your wall. If your negative ion generator could do that, it could neutralize a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't. And so that's where I was stuck for many, many decades, in terms of just giving people as many bottles with the wrapping and whatever per their space. But in other words, they have to have multiple bottles. And then people started talking about the toroidal field or the torus field and the poloidal field or the polar field. And looking at the dynamics of how the Earth actually is shaped and how the energy grid works, scientifically, we in the metaphysical community understood that energy comes to the Earth, but it comes in one form. And the most basic example I can give is that sunlight does not come to the Earth as a visible ray that has heat. From the time that energy leaves the outer parameter of the sun, which is called the corona, and then it travels for 86 or 100, whatever those things are. No, it's 93 million miles through space. It is not visible and it's not warm or cold. It's not any of those things. It's only when it passes through our atmosphere and our membrane, and that translates it into the experience that we have now. What the hell does it have to do with what we're talking about? If incoming can transform energy from one form into another, then outgoing can transform energy from one energy state to another. Can I get an amen just on a testimonial theory?
Amen. We say facts, Elder.
No, we ain't got to the facts yet. Come on.
Oh man, amen, my brother. Yes.
Okay. I'm just presenting my theories to the jury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So therefore, we look at once again. I had planned on talking about science, but I'm actually testifying now. We look at the energy grid and what it testifies to, and without understanding any of the things that Lester had planned on saying, you look at the latitude lines and you look at the longitude lines. And we're not going to get anal here because that's where people always want to go. There's a mathematic that latitude 5, longitude 8. Okay, so when we have that ratio of the energy grid, and that's the combination of the torus field and the poloidal field, and I'm not giving you any of this. This is for a whole nother video where I'm going to actually show y'all. But the end result is when you have that mathematic, what you're creating is you're creating one thing, and then you have the dielectric, and then you have the second thing. So you're creating what is known as a condenser, where it takes energy from one state and either steps it up or slows it down. Now, since most of the energy that we're generating is inside the bottle with the negative ion, we want to step it up. But we put the mathematic on the bottle. And therefore, this is where we go. We're going, Jim. We're going. Okay.
You don't.
When I say 5, now hold on. The torus field is closer to the Earth. And therefore, these things around here are the 5. So you create the 5 first.
Mm-hmm.
And So whatever your bottle, whatever your container is, you're going to mathematically figure out, fifths. And then you make those things, and then you have a dielectric, something that separates that. And then you put down your colloidal field, because the colloidal field is out here. So therefore, this should be 8. Now, this is 16. This is for us drunken hippie types. No, you start off with 8. So you measure out 4, and you do half of that, and you put those lines down. That is your battery. And what does that mean? I could go on for another hour and a half, but what it means is now, instead of your bottle going 3 feet after 3 days, do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
When we make this mathematical relationship, this now goes as soon as I put, I'm being overly dramatic. As soon as I put this wrap crystal into this bottle, here we go. It's no longer 3 days. It's no longer 1 day to come out. It instantly goes out 15 feet.
Wow.
And that's how we change that. I'm trying to address your question. People are like, oh, do I do this? No, you change the environment, the entire funk. And only with this biocondenser will those ions go through the physical matter. Because you're setting up the field from which the actual stuff has to correspond. And that field's going beyond the physical matter.
Right.
So I'm trying to let you know that, I'm saying this in a matter of a couple of hours. This took many, many years and many, many tinkerings and undoing of thought, just to realize the abundance that the universe has for it's already there. We just had to correspond with it.
Wow.
But in terms of, but I'm just saying, in terms of what people want to tell me is possible, when Hank will tell you, I've been working with Hank for years. I've done things in people's houses and they've had problems, and the ions took care of it. Because it's not the ions, it's not the technology is not in the physical thing, it's in the consciousness, in the ordering, the orderliness that the universe has, the wisdom that the universe has always had. Okay, here's the other thing I want to say. The other thing I want to say is, I look at all these things online, and people always quote me. They don't know my name either, but they say you got to do this, you got to organize your, rechange your stuff, whatever, and but the people are very fond of talking about, once we cleanse, once we ascend, once we vibrate, I first had to do ayahuasca and then give that up. Then I had to do, the licking the toad, but then, then I had to listen. I love Disneyland. Okay. But in terms of what this technology taught me, that stuff is already in us. We just have to wake up to it. We don't have to invent it. Or I shouldn't say we. I don't have enough intelligence in my entire karmic lifetime to invent anything.
Right.
Okay? But I have enough sense to know to align with certain things. But for me to wait, for me to fast in the right way and whatever. Now I'm from the old school, because Hank, back in the day, he's trying to be something. He's like, yo, you should have tried to eat some of it. I'm like, dude, he didn't even say the name. I'm like, we used to have to fast for 2 weeks and then meditate on what question we wanted not to ask the guide or the guru, but to ask ourselves. And certain clothes we couldn't wear, all this other stuff. Not because it was an anal restriction, because it was literally divorcing ourselves from that old way of thinking. And now that consciousness, whatever it is accelerating. I don't have to go through all the permutations. There are other people that have done that and sped it up for me. Look, I did enough stupid drugs to accelerate thousands of people. But my point is that there is all this technology, but we need to know the basics. And the basis is, I want to say it, God loves us. If I can take a rock and put it in water and it generates negative ions, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, speeding it up, doing whatever things to it, all that's just degrees to me. But that's the foundation. So let me finish this up here before we begin on the actual questions. What I'm offering, or what I'm presenting to you, is my knowledge of this twofold system. The first part, which I learned second, but the first part is, how do I generate enough negative ions on a constant basis? And the answer was getting a container of water and putting quartz crystals in it. I don't have to plug that in. It's an automatic. It goes on. I just sped up the process. The second thing is, if I'm generating all these negative ions, how can they best serve me? And by rounding off or squaring off the corners, then suddenly that's feeding back more energy into my environment than it's letting off. And therefore, there's enough energy for everything that is in here. Also, the more negative ions we have, the less bugs we have, the less toxins we have, the less disease we have. These are known factors. And we're entering into the peak of the sunspot cycles in 2025. That's when, there's a lessening of negative ionization on the planet. This happens every 11 years. It's happened for thousands of years, every 11 years. So,
Definitely.
So the more we're energizing our spaces, and here's the other thing, because Hank and several people, they didn't know each other had said this, but they said it. They just mentioned to, but I knew it was the universe. There is the resonance factor. The resonance factor. Now I know a lot of people talk about the word resonance. Oh, we're in resonance. But what is resonance? What does resonance mean scientifically to me? Okay, resonance means, first of all, that you have two or more objects that are vibrating at the same frequency. And by definition of resonance, they maintain that vibration over time. Now, what is the result of two or more objects maintaining their frequency at the same time? The scientific definition is, unlike waves that travel through space and therefore take time to go from point A to point B, resonance, as soon as they're both resonating, whatever this is happening here is instantly happening there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It does not travel through space.
Deep. Deep.
Okay, so therefore, just imagine, excusez-moi, that we have three different people. Let's just say temples. We have three different prayer temples that each have their triangles up.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if they're doing the same meditation or the same yoga or the same self-defense or the same fasting or the same whatever discipline. Since they have a common frequency of the materials that they're made from and the time period that they're made from, the second law of resonance is if two or more things remain in, if three things remain in resonance, then eventually everything in that shape will take on that resonance.
I hear you, Elder.
No. I want to say that in terms of people already know this because that's 5G, yo.
Mm-hmm.
They told us there's going to be one of their mini stations every 500 feet. That was part of when they got approved by Congress. They're like, we're going to have this substation, in the cities, all over. And that's their way of doing it. So we got to do our own thing on a bigger level.
Right.
Okay.
Definitely.
So I'm just saying, this is how it works. And the advantage that we have to our ionizers is that we can program and intentionalize the crystals that we put into our ion generator.
Indeed.
It's sending out a resonant field of that. That's a 3D intention. Okay, it's spread. And remember, I give people 2 bottles, so it was guaranteed to go beyond the definition of your house.
Right.
It goes inside your whole house. It overlaps, but it goes beyond your house. Because that's the kind of science the Egyptians, they didn't just make something for one little tiny location. No, no. That's not even. You wouldn't even build anything like that without the knowledge that it's going to spread energy over a given field. Even wind direction. Now, I'm not even talking about metaphysics or religion. You know that would alter the there's a name they use for it. The local weather. Okay, now since I said this, let me backtrack for a moment, and then I'll give my summation. In science, we know, because I'm taking this crystal with this copper and I'm putting it in water. So some of the efficiency is being translated into the water, which is another way of saying you're not getting the maximum amount of energy that the wrapping can translate. And I'm only saying that to you because on a practical level, it is scientifically true that if I were to use, what's that big ass thing? If I were to use copper that has insulation like this, that we're used to, it would either I'd have to get a bigger crystal and wrap it around, because wrapping the crystals the size that I use, this would be, way more difficult. In other words, I'm getting more energy out of this by doing this than trying to fit this insulated thing that I'll save energy on this thing. But the science is, if it's insulated, it will be more efficient. And of course, we would love all experiments and feedback in terms of, once I wrap this, if there's anything organic that I can insulate this with, like wax or something, that that would duplicate this, because we can amplify this just with that. But the science is clear that they've already studied this and they know that this works. Anyway, I've said enough buzzing. I'm ready for questions and answers. How many rooms does it take? Can I do one room? Can I do multiple rooms? Whatever.
Yeah,
I just hope I've gotten the principles across.
no, definitely. You did a absolutely magnificent job demonstrating the basics to us, and a lot of people are gonna go and do what you was talking about. I got my quartz right here.
Okay. I just want to say
Yeah.
that okay, because I didn't address this, and you did ask it. Okay, it's around here somewhere. Just give me a minute.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. We about to wrap it up.
Oh,
I want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight, should I say.
oh, come on now. Okay, well,
Can't find it.
well, okay. What I wanted to say is, just imagine, forget the holes. Just imagine this as a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so therefore, placing a triangle up in our corners is going to satisfy what I'm talking about. Improving upon that is just putting multiple layers of other triangles on top, because everywhere that you have a point, you're amplifying the number of negative ions you're collecting.
So that's an example of one of the pyramids you make right there, the one you just showed.
Well, no, that's an advanced. See, that's why I'm shocked, because I'm like, how could I have not brought that? But that's excuse me, that's an advanced. That goes into the farthest most corners in your house.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't know where they went to.
Okay, it's all right.
But all I'm saying is that if you cut out a cardboard equilateral triangle,
Mm-hmm.
and the most important thing I need to say is excuse me, none of the science. It's the fact of, before you cut out your triangles, but before you put it up, and I use a glue gun. I just put a little dab of glue on each corner and just hold it up at a 45-degree angle, and it'll stick into the corner. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be flat. It's not going to be flat against the wall. It's going to be down at an angle, because anyway, it's going to look like that.
I got you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but my point is before you put it up, put your hand up to that corner. Mm-hmm. Put it about a foot away and move it back and forth, and then glue the thing up, and then put your hand up and move it back and forth. And most people experience the fact that they feel a very small, cool breeze, and those are the negative ions, because you've changed the energy from being stagnant to moving. That's all I wanted to say. And that's how we start, and there's way more.
Hey, Elder, I want to bring you back for part 2 sometime in the future for Q&A. I think that would be dope. A whole show. I want people to analyze this show, rewatch it, and a Q&A would be real good,
Study what's already known about negative and positive ionization. This is not metaphysical. But there are metaphysical aspects to it, for sure.
Hey, but before we get out of here, Elder, could you leave your info? I know your PayPal or website, anything you got, my brother.
Okay. My phone number, in case people want to call me, is 215-609-6586. And any donations can be given at A Pierce. That's APIERCE 720 at hold on, let me look at this thing. Hold on. AOL.com.
Oh, you got an AOL. Wow. That's the old school joint. So this is
well, it's my manager, and it's under his it's under his thing, creator's breath. But the point is that that's just for donations, which I never accept. But I'm just that if that comes out, I'll take it and I'll just feed it back to the community. Because no, listen to me. Yeah. Next time I will have time to have made everything I talked about and everything I'm going to talk about, so you can visually see what I'm talking about.
Excellent. So that's your PayPal, APeer720 at AOL, right?
Yes.
All right, just want to make sure I got that right. So I got the gentleman's PayPal on the screen. Lester Lovin PayPal, APeer720 at AOL.com. If you would like to donate to this brother right here, I definitely, like I said, once again, I appreciate you for coming on the show, my brother. And we'll do a part 2 where we get questions from the people. Any last thing you want to leave with them before we get out of here?
Listen, did what I don't consider this to be a technology, in the sense that we're just setting up the field. Oh God, what am I talking about? Of course I have something to say. It's the work of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, right, who she did all of her magnificent historical work, but the side that also needs to be given much attention is her analyzation that it's only at 70% negative ion does the melanin become fully functional. And that's a whole 2-hour conversation on its own, just in terms of what she said, what her crew said, and then what I was able to demonstrate. But that's the importance, on top of all the other things. That's the importance of having the proper, because once again, people people say, oh, it's 70%. No, what that means is it's instantaneous. You get the correspondence, you know it to be true, and you act upon it instantly before you even have time to doubt it or think. And that's what 70-30 is. That when you're 70-30, that's what happens. And what's the proof? People say, well, how can you prove that? I'm like, all the animals, all the trees, all the microcosm, all the mycelium, they're all at 70-30. That's what I want to say.
Excellent. No, excellent way to end it. 70-30 ratio for the melanin to become activated. Right now it's potentially fully activated. So that's how important these negative ions is. You keep talking about how powerful your melanin is. It has to get activated. So hey, let's love it. Thank you, my brother. I truly appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna give you a call tomorrow, my brother. Okay?
If not sooner.
Okay. All right. Peace, family. Peace, Lester. All right. See you next time.
Thank you.
All right.